Hi, everybody, and thank you for joining me in this class number 3 of CBT Skills for Anxiety. If you've joined me in the first two classes, thank you very much. It's nice to have worked with you in those classes. But if you haven't, I'd recommend that you have a look at class number 1 and then class number 2, because they set the foundation for what we're discussing today. Okay, so today follows on from both of those classes. In class 1 and 2, we developed the theme, this idea that there's a close relationship between what we think about and how we feel. And this is central to cognitive behavior therapy. Okay. In a sense, what we think about, we bring about in terms of our feelings. Okay. And in week 2, or class 2 rather, we also then developed that theme into looking into the number of thinking errors that people often make. And this is associated with anxiety, sometimes depression, worry, and other negative, unhelpful emotions. Okay. Today, we're going to develop that theme a little bit further, and we're going to look at some more thinking errors. And in a short while, what I think would be useful is I'll read out a list of thoughts, okay, fictitious thoughts, where somebody is making it one of the common thinking errors that we refer to in CBT. And what I'd recommend is after each one that I read out, pause the video, okay, unless you're watching me live, in which case you can't. But if you're watching this as a recording, pause the video after each one that I read out and have a think about that statement, that thought, and see if you can work out what's wrong with it. How is it unhelpful? How is it not constructive? How is it likely to lead to anxiety, worry, depression, or any other negative emotions? Okay. And then restart the video. And then pause it again after number 2, after number 3, after number 4, etc., etc. Okay. Have a think about what thinking error might the person be making in that sentence, with that sentence. Okay. Okay. And also, if you can work out what might a more helpful, constructive way of thinking in that situation be. Okay. Before I do that, I'm going to look at 5 questions that people have sent to me during the week. And I'm always very grateful for questions. Please do send them in to me, email them to me, enter them into the YouTube chat box. And I'll always try and address those questions if I can. And if I don't know the answer, I will find out the answer. Okay. So number 1, Gillian from London has said, what if I can't find the anxiety-provoking thought? Okay. Remember, we talked about in situations where we feel anxious, we can always usually look at the thoughts, look at the cognitive content immediately before us feeling anxious or during that time where we're feeling anxious. Okay. So Gillian is asking, what if I can't find that anxiety-provoking thought? Okay. It takes a bit of time to practice these skills and to begin to be able to find the thinking errors that we're making and to be able to find the thoughts that we're thinking that create or help to create the anxiety. So I would say that for Gillian, keep recording immediately after the situation that happens where we begin to feel anxious, or immediately afterwards. Okay, write down what was happening and what was I thinking about. Okay, it's important to do it very shortly afterwards, because then it's fresh in our mind rather than leaving it till the end of the day. Okay, so make sure that we do this. Practice catching the thought. It's not a skill that comes naturally to us. Okay, how many times in the past has anybody said to us, I want you to start keeping a record of your thinking? Okay, for many of us, it's never happened unless we've been to cognitive behavior therapy classes or therapy in the past. Okay, so practice, practice, practice. It takes time to develop the skills. Okay, and try and detach yourself from the situation if you can. Stand back at a distance from the situation during which you felt some anxiety. Okay, try and detach yourself from it a little bit. And then sometimes it's easier to find the thoughts that were going through your mind at that time. Okay, so my main answer is keep on practicing, analyze the situations shortly afterwards. Okay. David from Brighton asked, what if I find that I'm having lots of unhelpful thoughts? Don't worry about this. That's the first thing I would say. Important not to worry about it. It's quite common. Many of us will have a whole stream of thoughts. We have so many hundreds of thousands of thoughts every week, I would argue. I'm not sure who counts these things, but apparently we have thousands of thoughts every single day running through our mind. Okay. Now, sometimes we can have lots and lots of unhelpful thoughts running through our mind. It can almost be like a constant stream of negativity or unhelpful thinking. So don't worry about this. Be patient with yourself. Record as many as you can using the ABC sheets that we talked about in the previous 2 classes. Okay. Try and catch, just practice. Remember, you're developing skills here. So be supportive to yourself, be compassionate and be patient with yourself as you develop these skills. Okay. So record as many as you can. Okay. Tackle them one at a time. Okay. And maybe over a period of time, maybe when you look at your ABC record sheet over perhaps a week or so, okay, and you start to look at the commonalities, the links between how you think in each of these situations, very often we will find that there's a close relationship, there's a correlation, there's a pattern, lots of similarities in the way that we think, especially in certain situations. Okay, try and draw out that link and find the most common thought that goes through your mind during these situations where you feel anxious and begin working on that one. Okay, so break it down into baby steps. Okay, when you find that common thought that keeps on arising, tackle that one first, perhaps. Okay, look at how helpful it is, how constructive, how supportive. How does it help you to feel the way you want to feel? How does it help you to get what you want to get? Okay. And if it doesn't tick all those boxes, begin to look for more helpful, rational, realistic, constructive, and compassionate alternative ways of thinking. Okay. So step by step. Mary in Manchester said, I start to feel angry when I see that I'm making all these errors, these thinking errors. The main thing there is be kind and compassionate to yourself. There is nothing wrong at all, even though we call them thinking errors. There's nothing wrong at all in the way that we think about stuff. Remember, there are helpful and constructive ways of thinking, and then there are other ways that are perhaps not as helpful and constructive. Okay. And we're on a journey of learning here. We're beginning to understand the way that we think. Okay. We're looking at the patterns. We're looking at what thinking errors we might be making. We're looking for more helpful, realistic, constructive, compassionate alternatives. Okay. So don't be angry with yourself. Okay. Just allow these thoughts to be, because at the moment we're just observing them, we're detailing them, we're getting to understand them, we're getting to list them before we can then start to make amendments. Okay, so be compassionate. Remind yourself that at this stage we're just gathering the data before we really get to work on the nuts and bolts of turning around the way that we think so that it's much more helpful to us. Okay. Tom in Birmingham said, wouldn't it be easier to just try and blot out the thoughts that create the anxiety? No. What happens when we try to blot out thoughts or we try to stop ourselves from thinking a certain thought is that thought in itself becomes more prevalent. Okay. So, for example, if I said to you, for the next 5 minutes, you mustn't think about chocolate ice cream. Okay. Push that thought out of your mind. What's the first thought that comes into your mind? Chocolate ice cream. So the more we try and push thoughts away or prevent ourselves from thinking certain thoughts, the more prevalent they become and the more empowered they become. Okay. So the whole idea in CBT is to begin to understand the way that we're thinking. Okay. Look at how helpful, constructive, realistic, and compassionate those thoughts are, and make changes where we need to. Okay. Begin to find more helpful alternatives. So we're not trying to stop one thought and encourage another, but we're kind of going through a process to find more helpful, constructive alternatives. Okay. Okay. Peter in Doncaster said, what if it's other people in my life that makes me feel anxious? Remember, central to cognitive behavior therapy is this idea that it's not the situation that creates anxiety for us, but rather it's the way that we think about that situation. It's the way that we interpret the situation. It's the thoughts that we have about the situation that create the anxiety, ultimately. Okay. So if we say that other people or other situations create the anxiety for us, we're kind of pushing the ball down the road. Okay. We're kicking the ball into the long grass. Okay. We're better to take ownership, which doesn't mean blaming ourselves at all, but take ownership for our own thoughts. Okay. We empower ourselves to look at our own thoughts, our own responses to situations, our own interpretations of events, because therein lies the roots of anxiety. Okay. So it's what we think about a situation that helps to create the anxiety in that situation or shortly thereafter. Okay. Now, there are some situations where, for example, we're in genuine danger and we feel anxious in that situation, and perhaps somebody else or a situation has created danger for us. Okay. It's absolutely normal in that situation where we would feel anxiety. And that's not just to do with our own thinking. If that's a genuinely dangerous situation, we need to take evasive action. Okay. That's something very different to what we're looking at here. Okay. Excellent. Okay. Where should we go from here? Okay. I'm going to give you a list of sentences, and these are fictitious thoughts. Fictitious thoughts? Yeah, fictitious thoughts. And I'd like you to pause the video after each one so that you can think about what's wrong with this way of thinking, and perhaps what thinking error is this person making. And crucially, what might a more helpful, constructive, realistic, compassionate alternative be? Okay, here we go. Number one, I made a mistake at work. I'm so stupid. Why did I do such a thing? Okay, so pause it here and have a think about that sentence. Number two, I'm not going to do well in that job interview tomorrow. Okay, pause it here and think about that. Number three, it started raining. The whole holiday is ruined. Pause it here. Number four, my friend Tom isn't answering the phone. He must be mad at me about something. Pause it here. Number five, my relationship failed. I, therefore, am an absolute failure. Pause it there. I failed my biology exam. I'm an absolute failure. I'm no good at exams. 2 lines of thought there. Pause it here. My performance on Britain's Got Talent is all or nothing. It's make or break time. Pause it there. Number 8. My partner said he or she doesn't love me. I must therefore be unlovable. Pause it there. Have a think of that. Number 9. I absolutely must go to see my auntie tomorrow. What's wrong with that sentence? Pause it there. And the final one, Bob always dresses nicer than me. Bob is in better shape than me. Bob is better qualified than me. Bob lives in a nicer part of town than me. So those kind of thoughts for number 10. Pause there and have a think about it. Okay, let's go through those and see what you've written and see how we get on. Number 1, I made a mistake at work. I'm so stupid. Why did I do such a thing? Okay. I mean, they were being very critical and negative about ourselves and our performance. It's a self put down. We're putting ourselves down there. Okay. We're telling ourselves that we mustn't make mistakes. Okay. We all make mistakes. I make them all the time. You might have spotted a few in this video. But that's okay. I'm trying my best. I really am. Okay. So in that one, we're being harsh on ourselves and we're assuming that making a mistake at work or anywhere else for that matter means that we're stupid. Okay. It doesn't at all. Making a mistake means that we're human. It's part of the learning process. Any teacher will tell you that mistakes are part of the learning process. They're absolutely normal. None of us can speak French on the first day that we go to a French class. Okay. We make lots of mistakes in our pronunciation. We get the grammar back to front. Okay. Number 2, I will not do well in the job interview tomorrow. There, we're predicting the future negatively. It's very clear. Okay. We're assuming the worst about what's going to happen tomorrow. And it's negative. It's unhelpful. Remember, we can't know what's happening in the future. We can plan and prepare for it. We might know that we have a job interview tomorrow, but we can't possibly have any clear indication of how we're going to do. We will do our best, and that's what we remind ourselves. I will do my best in that job interview, and hopefully, if it's the right job for me, they will hire me. Okay. Number 3, it started raining. The whole holiday's ruined now. Here we're it's catastrophizing for sure, but also we're judging the whole of the holiday, a week or 2 weeks, perhaps. We're judging the whole of the holiday negatively on the basis of one isolated event, a rain shower. That rain shower might only last for 6 minutes, and then the sun will come out and the holiday will be beautiful. It's worth saying at this point that some people absolutely love the rain, and their idea of a wonderful holiday would be where it rains every day. Okay. Myself, I love the sunshine. But in any case, we mustn't assume that just because it's raining at the moment, the next week or 2 weeks is all totally ruined. Okay. It's a gross overgeneralization. Okay. My friend Tom isn't answering the phone. He must be mad at me. There we're mind reading. We're assuming that we can read Tom's mind and that Tom is thinking something negative about us. Tom is upset or is angry at us about A, B, and C. Okay. We can't possibly know at the moment why Tom's not answering his phone. Could be that his phone is faulty. He could be unwell. He could be resting and wanting a break from everybody for a while. Okay. He could have gone on holiday and forgot to tell us. He could be working late. Okay. A whole range of reasons. It doesn't have to mean that he's mad at us. So that's kind of mind reading. My relationship failed. Number 5, my relationship failed. I'm an absolute failure. Again, this is where we extrapolate information from one event, and we make a globalizing judgment, okay, an overgeneralization, okay, about ourselves. So I made a mistake. I'm totally stupid. My relationship failed. I'm an absolute failure. Remember, failure at something doesn't mean failure as a person. Not at all. It means that we're human. You know, relationships fail for a whole variety of reasons. It's not just about us, it's about a whole range of factors. Okay? Okay. I failed my biology exam. I'm no good at exams. You might even say I'm a failure as well. Let's say I'm no good at exams. Again, it's a generalization. Do you see, from one small event, failing at an exam, we've made the assumption that we're bad at all exams. Okay? That's not fair. It's not helpful. It's not constructive. It's not realistic, even. Okay? We might find exams challenging. We might prefer to do coursework instead, to write a paper, write an essay, write a report. That's absolutely fine. That's one thing. Okay? But to make this globalizing judgment about ourselves that we're no good at exams, full stop, period, is clearly not realistic. It's not helpful. My performance on Britain's Got Talent is all or nothing. It's make or break. For any of you that watch Britain's Got Talent or America's Got Talent, you will often hear some of the contestants say something like this. Okay, I have to give my very best on stage. It's now or never. It's all or nothing. Okay, it's very harsh on ourselves, and you can see the anxiety and the nervousness that the contestants feel, partly as a result of that thinking error. Okay, it's a driver of anxiety when we say this is all or nothing. Okay, I either do wonderful at this job or I'm an absolute failure. I'm either brilliant at relationships or I'm an absolute failure. Okay, it's all or nothing thinking, often referred to as black and white thinking. Okay, it's looking at two ends of the spectrum. We're either at this end or we're at that end. Okay, but in reality, there are lots of positions in between those two polarities. Okay, perfect. Okay. So-and-so said he doesn't love me. I must be unlovable. Again, do you see that that's a globalizing judgment? Okay, it's a self-put down as well. But we're making an assumption there, just because somebody said that they don't love us, that we therefore must be unlovable. Okay. So-and-so, the person, whoever it is, can make their own judgment on whether or not they love us. Okay. That doesn't have to say anything at all about us as a person. They get to choose whether they love us or not, but also we get to choose who we love. Okay. And remember, there are 8 billion people on the planet. So if one person says they don't love us, we assume that we're unlovable, but we haven't asked that other 8 billion people what their opinion might be. Okay. Perfect. Next one, number 9. I absolutely must go and see my auntie tomorrow. Did you get the thinking error here? When we find ourselves using words like have to, got to, must, and should, okay, these are also drivers of anxiety. We're giving ourselves ultimatums. Okay, these are not very flexible at all. Okay, they drive anxiety. I absolutely must pass this exam. I have to, I've got to, I should do, I ought to, I ought not. Okay. When you find yourself saying those terms or thinking those thoughts, Try and turn them around because they're not helpful. They drive the anxiety. Okay. Try and replace them for something like, I would very much like to go and see my auntie tomorrow. I shall endeavor to go and see my auntie tomorrow. I would like to, I aim to, I will try to see my auntie tomorrow. It's important that I see my auntie tomorrow. Okay. So we're not using those drivers of anxiety there. Perfect. The final one, Bob always dresses nicer than me. Bob is in better shape than me. Excuse me. Bob is better qualified than me. Bob lives in a nicer part of town than me. What's wrong with that sentence? Well, we're comparing ourselves negatively to other people. In this case, we're comparing ourselves to Bob. Okay. Whether or not Bob dresses nicer than us or me, whether Bob is in better shape than me, better qualified than me, lives in a nicer part of town than me, these are opinions. Okay. These are opinions, and also they're choices. We're choosing to think in that way, but we're comparing ourselves negatively to somebody else, and then we feel bad as a result. Okay. If we look at some of the models on TV, I don't know if you yourself look like a model, but perhaps I don't, and that's okay. But if we look at the models on TV and we compare ourselves to them, okay, and we say, oh, this person is so much more handsome than I am. He's in better shape. He makes lots and lots of money. He lives in this real nice big mansion. That's absolutely wonderful for that person. But let's not compare ourselves negatively to that person. In some areas in life, some people are ahead. In some areas, some people might feel that they're behind. But don't worry about these things, okay? Important not to compare ourselves, okay? It creates anxiety and it creates negative emotions that are unhelpful. Okay. The final thing I'd like to mention is you'll recall that in the previous session, we looked at what we call ABC sheets, or an ABC diary, or often referred to as a thought diary in cognitive behavior therapy sessions. Okay. And it looks something like this. Remember, the A column is we describe what happened in a certain situation. The B column, we list some of our thoughts during or immediately after the situation. In the C column, we describe our feelings. Okay. I'd like you to keep practicing with an ABC diary, okay, as much as you can, and try to find out what the thoughts are and what thinking errors you might be making there, okay, that lead to the feelings over here. Keep on practicing that. And when you feel that you have a good understanding of the thoughts that go through your mind and you're able to record them like this, and you're able to draw the link between thoughts and feelings, then begin to use the skills that we've discussed today and in last week's session, where we begin to find an alternative way of thinking in that situation. Remember, the golden rule is that we're looking for thoughts that are helpful, constructive, compassionate, kind, and supportive to us. Okay. So in the A, B, C, and D sheet, I'd like you to start writing in the D column more helpful alternative ways of thinking in the situation that you've recorded there. Okay. So keep on practicing the skills, very important set of skills. Any questions at all, please do get in touch. I love to hear from people. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already done so, and then you'll be kept in the loop when there are other free live streaming events coming up. Okay. Have a great week. Remember, be kind and compassionate to yourself, and treat yourself nicely and treat other people nicely. Okay. Have a great week. Thank you very much for attending. Bye-bye from London.